Welcome to Unpacking Autism with Reena Anand, the podcast where stories are shared, hearts are touched, and we grow together in empowerment to help our autistic children thrive. Welcome everyone to today's episode of Unpacking Autism. And as usual, you're going to love this one. I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to Katherine Anguige today. Katherine is a principal optometrist at Moorfields Eye Hospital, and she's got a wealth of clinical experience in paediatric and adult refraction and low vision, glaucoma, external diseases, and general ophthalmology. She's the lead optometrist for the paediatric service at the hospital. And since qualifying with a first-class honours degree in 2007, Katherine's gone on to complete the College of Optometrists Professional Certificate in Paediatric Eye Care and the Higher Certificate in Glaucoma. She's also a registered independent prescriber and holds a postgraduate certificate in healthcare leadership. Katherine enjoys seeing patients of all ages and making them feel at ease, and she has a special interest in the provision of eye care for those with learning difficulties, carrying out eye screening for those in special needs schools, and setting up clinics for adults with learning difficulties. And I was really keen today to bring Katherine on because it's not easy navigating unfamiliar spaces with our autistic children, whether that's the dentists, the doctors, or going for an eye test. And Katherine's got a wealth of experience in this area and is going to be sharing with us today some tips on how we can navigate this journey with our children to make it as stress-free as possible, both for the child and for the parent. So I'm hugely grateful to you, Katherine. You are an extremely busy lady, but and not just at work, you've got your family and all sorts going on. So thank you so much for taking the time out to share with our parents and carers and listeners some of your experience.
You're very welcome. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'd love to hear, I think if we just talk a bit about you, what is it about this area that's of particular interest to you?
Well, I think it's just the fact that vision and eye care is just so important in a child's development, their learning, not only that, but just, their general well-being, their happiness and their enjoyment of the world around them. It's just so key to make sure that their vision is as good as possible. And I'm really keen that eye tests are, just as accessible for children with learning difficulties, with autism, so that they can have the same opportunities and reach the same potential as everybody else. And I've seen obviously firsthand all different children attending the clinic. So it's really just super rewarding to see the children and to give them the care and to put them at ease. So if I can impart any of that knowledge, then that's great.
That sounds amazing. It's so admirable. I mean, I can only imagine the different challenges that might present themselves when you have children who, they might be afraid of the environment. I mean, hospitals in their nature look quite clinical, can look a bit scary with so much equipment. And managing that to be able to even conduct a test. But as I loved what you just said there about it, by looking at and correcting and supporting their eye health, that actually opens up so much more of their world that they can participate in. It's not just about being able to see, it's about so much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Their education and, as I say, their well-being. If you could see the world around you, what more of a joy is that? If you go on a walk and you can see the birds in the trees, and it's everyone should have that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So from your experience, what are the most common difficulties that you see when you have autistic child patients, and in terms of getting them tested and helping them become comfortable with the environment?
Well, you've already touched on it, really. It's a lot of it is just that unfamiliarity and that uncertainty of what it involves. going to a completely new place, whether that's an optician's practice or a hospital, as you say, somewhere quite clinical that can look quite scary with all the machines and bits of equipment. We have to do certain tests that include bright lights, which often children aren't keen on, and we have to get quite close up in some cases to actually look at the eyes as well. So just that general kind of invading the child's personal space, that's quite tricky sometimes. And even just simple things like having to ask a lot of the child, a lot of cooperation, ask them a lot of questions. We have to explain everything quite easily and simply to the child, especially when they're autistic, so that they get a grasp of what we're actually asking them to do. So there's quite a few kind of obstacles there already.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose when you look at that compared to, I think there's always an element of either interest or curiosity and possibly fear when you have a neurotypical child. But the sheer number of layers of potential triggers for a meltdown, I mean, it's kind of quite ripe for a child to be highly distressed if they are. I mean, the things you just listed now, I was thinking of Evie, the lights, the being in his face, kind of the questions. I mean, he would ask, I remember taking him, opposite end of the body, it was his foot, but he was asking everything. He absolutely grilled the podiatrist about his qualification to touch his feet before he would let him anywhere near them. But Evie's also able to communicate that, and a lot of autistic children might not have the language yet to even be able to articulate,
to communicate. Exactly.
So how can we overcome? What sorts of things do you do to help parents and the children feel at ease in that environment, either before they attend the appointment or even during it?
Well, I think preparation is key. So it's all about kind of talking to the child about what's going to happen. Maybe even take them to the building if it's in a local optician's, just say, oh, that's where we're going to go. Maybe even inside, and just sort of say hello to the staff that are there, so that they're all a bit more familiar on the day when they go back for the eye test. It's not as scary. There's lots of resources that you can look at, which actually are kind of created for children with learning difficulties or with autism, which actually shows you the journey of what happens in the eye test. So it's put very simply in sort of pictures, and pointing out that we'll use a light and we may need to get quite close to look at your eyes, and sort of preparing the child and the parent what will actually happen on the day, so they can kind of talk through it and kind of prepare for it. So there's a really good couple of resources. There's on the seeability.org website. They're a fantastic website, and they have lots of resources on a link there. One of those is called Having an Eye Test. So you can either look at that on your tablet or you can print it out, and it's actually got, as I say, all these pictures of what to expect on the day, so you can actually familiarize the child with it. There's even a Peppa Pig episode where Peppa goes to get her eyes tested. So even something like that, just to make it more fun, and show what's going to happen. Even simple things like just practicing putting on glasses at home, because we might want to put the glasses on to put the lenses in the eye test. So having a little play with mum or dad's glasses, or putting some sunglasses on, just to get used to the feel of something on the face, because a lot of children, autistic children especially, don't like actually things going on their face. So if they're prepared for that to happen and used to it, then that's really helpful. And the other thing that I thought of is if you are coming to sort of a busy hospital for an appointment, you could have the sunflower lanyard. Mm-hmm. So just for the for people with hidden disabilities, they're great. So just kind of, it's a really visible sign. Oh, actually, we might need to just give you a bit more time and a bit more space while you're kind of in the hospital. We have sort of helping hand stickers that we put on individuals' notes that might need a little bit more time, a little bit more care, just as a visual sort of trigger for us to know that person needs a bit more help. So it's that sort of thing, really. And then we can do things like we can make sure that it's a quiet time of the day, that we're seeing the child. One of our clinics here we have that's sort of dedicated to children with special needs. We do that in a different part of the hospital where it's really, really nice and quiet. There's no other kind of, children and families sort of milling around. It's just them. And so it's a lot less stressful. And you're not going to be sort of waiting for really, really long times, getting very anxious. You're going to be seen sort of promptly. Things like that will always help as well. And sometimes we just have to, if we don't get all the cooperation in one go, we just bring them back another time. It's not worth absolutely terrifying the child the first time and then they don't want to ever come back again. We sometimes bring children back again to complete some of the tests just because, it's just so much better all round in the long term as well, just to keep their kind of happiness and their confidence of coming into the hospital. Yes, lots of things.
That's amazing. I think, and I was just thinking, because I use, even now, Evie's 9 and I still use social stories for any place we're going to, whether that's visiting family or whether we have an appointment. It just helps him mentally prepare for the place he's going to, which is somewhere he's not been either before, or he doesn't go to regularly, and he feels a little bit more in control. So it's wonderful that's the ability of got that. And for anyone listening in, I'll post the links to the resources that Katherine's just mentioned in the show notes. When it's wonderful to hear like the quiet space and things, I think parents would find that really reassuring. Obviously, not all parents will have their children as patients at Moorfield. So I think, would you agree that perhaps if there was anything that a parent would feel would benefit their child, that they should feel comfortable in approaching the hospital setting or the optometrists that they're visiting to just share anything that they can do that would help make that visit a bit more comfortable for that child?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really helpful. And I work in private practice too, in an optometry shop, so I work in that setting as well. And that's really valuable there as well. And often you can, sort of dedicate things and tailor things a little bit better almost when it is in that setting. When it's not quite as busy and quite as chaotic as a hospital. So yeah, the more information we can get, the better. There is, I think again, it's on the Seeability website. There's also a form that you can fill in on there. It's called About Your Child and Their Eyes. And that has just really key information about what you're concerned about. And also, as you say, any triggers that we've got to be mindful of when we're doing the eye test. And that's really good. You can actually fill that in and just drop that off at the practice before you have the eye test. So they've got all that information even before you step through the door on the day. And then it just saves time. So you're not having to sit there asking all the questions. You can just get on and do the tests and just focus on that. Which is much better if you only have a limited amount of time to get the cooperation. But yeah, information is amazing. That's what we want. Definitely.
I think parents will find that really reassuring to hear, because I remember in the early days feeling like that anything I was asking was almost burdensome. Like I was actually creating, more work for whoever it is that I was visiting. But from what you're saying, essentially, it's actually making that whole visit not only go smoother, it actually is helping the practitioner, because they can ensure that whatever they can learn in advance, they can familiarize with, and then just get on with the actual task at hand.
Yeah, you kind of already know what you really need to check, because what your concerns are. So you know what to sort of hone in on with your tests. And also, you know, what you have to be mindful of, that not going to hopefully trigger, you know, a meltdown.
Yes.
By, you know, being aware of what can actually trigger the child. So yeah, it's really helpful. Sometimes, you know, that they might book a double appointment or something like that, so there is a bit more time if we know all these things in advance.
Yes, that's really helpful. I was just wondering, is there a correlation between autism and vision? Is there anything that talks about, I don't know, later diagnoses of eye issues, or do we find that children who aren't able to express that they can't see very well, that, you know, maybe through process of elimination, it's later discovered maybe that they have a difficulty, you know, with their vision?
Yeah, definitely. Both of those things are correct. I mean, a lot of sort of autistic behaviors can actually, you know, present as a result of a visual problem. So poor eye contact, excessive blinking, turning the head, rubbing the eyes, all these sorts of things you can assume are just because the child is autistic, but actually they've got an underlying eye problem. They can't see very well, so they're rubbing their eyes, or, you know, they've got hay fever, so they're itching them, or you know, various things could be. Yeah, and you could have a glasses prescription that you know, they're trying to really blink and sort of focus. So we need to make sure we're not kind of just overshadowing things and assuming it's the autistic behavior when it could be, you know, down to a problem with the eyes, it's themselves. So definitely there's that element. And yeah, I mean, research would show there is definitely a link between a higher incidence of certain things with autistic children. So things like strabismus, which is where the eye turns in or out. You may have heard the word squint. So that is thought to be, from research, about 25 to 50% higher incidence in children with autism. And that can lead to the eye getting lazy if it's not picked up and it's not treated properly in those early years. Also, there's definitely a link between a higher sort of level, a higher incidence of spectacle prescriptions in children with autism, and that sort of links in with evidence that a lot of autistic children have a sort of weakened near focusing, which we call accommodation. So one study showed that 1 in 5 autistic children had this sort of lag of near focusing, so they weren't able to maintain that focusing when they were looking at, you know, their toys and things close up. So, you know, obviously that's going to definitely impact their, you know, their learning, their vision, you know, everything. So it's really important to pick things up so that they can be treated before they, you know, run into any problems. You know, I think something like 80% of learning is supposed to be from the vision. So if you can't see well and you can't focus up close, you know, you're really going to struggle. And you already may have, you know, other elements of problems, you know, with learning, other barriers. So you don't need vision getting in the way as well. So yeah, it's really important to you know, to check it. It's very simple to just have a quick look. You know, we can literally just have a quick look with a light and a couple of lenses and get an idea of whether there is you know, something that we need to investigate further.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take long to get an idea of, whether there's anything, that needs looking into a bit more and needs treating.
Yeah. And for any parents out there whose children, aren't under a hospital or receiving any treatment for their eye care, for their eyes, what's a good frequency for them to be asking for their child's eyes to be tested?
Well, the NHS will do eye tests on the high street for any child under 16 for free. And generally under 16, the review would be once a year. Unless there's any concerns, we would obviously follow up sooner. Generally, things you're looking out for earlier, if there's any family history of a squint or a lazy eye, so an eye turning in, or someone in the family having to wear a patch, then it's always worth, that needs treating before the age of about 8, because the vision is kind of locked in by then. So if there's anything like that in the family, high glasses prescriptions from a very young age, then it's a really good idea to get a test sort of on. Especially if you've actually noticed an eye turn, or you notice your child get really close to stuff or complain of anything, then those are kind of things to look out for. As we said already, sort of rubbing the eyes as well. As a rule, I think kind of reception age is a good age to have an eye test, sort of age 4. Most high street opticians would be happy seeing a child from school age. If it's less than that, if the child isn't able to sort of name pictures or letters, then it would be, and you have a concern, then you would need to get a referral to the hospital to have the test done. We need to do kind of more specialist tests. So that would be done, you just go to your GP and you get a referral. But yeah, generally as a rule, sort of school age and up, and once a year.
And with the example you just gave, where they're not able to label, say, letters or pictures, say for the child is pre-verbal, are there mechanisms, are there ways that you can still check the eye health of that child, where they can communicate in an alternative way with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can use, even if they're non-verbal, we can test the vision by using, we call it preferential looking. So the theory is that a child would always rather look at a picture than an empty space. So we hold up cards, and the picture's on one side and an empty space on the other side, and then you're just literally looking to see side they look at and whether that's correct, and then you get gradually smaller and smaller pictures. So you can still get, even in children that aren't verbal, you can get a measurement of the vision in that way. Another thing we do, which parents can do at home, which is really helpful, is just cover one eye at a time. And if they really, they're not bothered with one eye, and then you cover the other eye and they really, absolutely hate it, that's a sign that there's quite a difference between the two eyes. So if that's something that you notice, again, that needs to be seen in the hospital, because there may be something going on, maybe some glasses treatment needed or some patching, like that. But yeah, there's lots of tests we can do without sort of actually having any sort of communication, and actually looking at the health of the eyes. In the hospital, we have a special kind of headset that we can use to actually, just have a very quick look, and we can see kind of the whole snapshot of the back of the eye all in one go, super quick. And as I said, for the prescription, just looking with a light, literally just holding up some lenses. Again, not, having to ask them, is it better with one or is it better with two? It's all objective, it's all looking. So yes, it doesn't matter if the child has limited communication, we can still get a really good handle on their vision, their prescription, their eye health, all of these things.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think hopefully that will provide a lot of reassurance to parents who might be wondering, how they could even get their child's eye health checked if they're not able to communicate that. So that I think that will actually really help parents to hear that. So thank you for that. I think that's been really helpful to share what parents can do in advance, and what accommodations can be made in hospital and optometry settings to help that experience just flow a bit more easily for everybody involved. Did you have anything else that you really wanted to share, or that you'd like parents to take away with them in relation to this topic?
No, I think I would just say, if you have concerns, then obviously just don't be scared to have an appointment, to see the GP and ask for a referral. There are obviously tests that we can do, and we can make accommodations, for the child. And yeah, it can be made as as hopefully as good an experience as possible. A lot of children just think it's, when they actually have had their eye test, think it's really fun. They get their sticker, and we've had a little look with some pictures, and they've played a game, and they've brought their teddy bear in, and we've tested their eyes, and they just think it's great, and they realize that it's not anything to be worried about, and then they will come back again. So yeah, I would just say don't be scared, and seek out, and have the eyes checked, whether that's in hospital or that's in the high street in practice. So many things can be picked up. It's really important, especially in the early stages before the age of 8, because that's when everything's kind of fully developed. So and the earlier the better, to get them sort of familiar as well. So I would just really sort of advocate, just go and have an eye test.
Yeah. You heard it here, parents. Okay, look, as Katherine said, 80% of our learning is through what we see. So let's, if your child's not had an eye test yet, or if you've been worried about taking them because of their autism and because of how they sometimes may react to a new environment, please don't let that put you off. Please reach out to your nearest optometrists and see how they might be able to help you make that experience one that isn't going to be traumatizing for your child. But certainly we need to be on top of it, and we know that our children just need a little bit more careful handling, but we want to optimize the environments for them so that they can thrive, and we have to make sure that they get their eyes tested and all their other health checks done, so that they're primed for success, whatever that success looks like for them. So you don't have to listen to me, but you've heard it from Katherine, who's highly qualified in this space. Katherine, thank you very much indeed. I think that's been hugely informative, and I think parents will find that really reassuring too.
That's great. And if you get any questions, I'm happy to answer them if anyone contacts you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Unpacking Autism with Reena Anand. Podcast artwork by Creative Stripes, editing by Adam Jones Lloyd, and music by autistic musician Paul McGowan.